Okay, as we move through the semester, it's going to be really important that you take really good care of your clay. So we're going to talk about how to do that. Here's what I have left of all the clean cuts that I've taken off the block of clay. You can see that I've squeezed all the air out. I've got the twist tie really tight. So this is going to be well cared for, right? Don't keep it in the sun, direct sun. And you know, just make sure that all the air is out and it's really nice and tight. All right, so that's still good clay ready to use. Here's a bag full of my clay scraps where I put all the pieces back together. So there's air, there's kind of like, you know, some bits of clay that are like firmer than others, but this is still really soft. See how easily my finger pushes into it? So I should be able to do what's called wedge, and you can visit the web page, or excuse me, the page for wedging in this module. This is called wedging, when you kind of remix it when it's still wet enough. You can visit that page, the wedging page in this module for caring for your clay. And so I can come back to this and wedge it. Again, it's important that this has got all the air squeezed out of it. The bag's really nice and tight, lasts forever like this. All this needs to do is be kind of mixed, wedged, and then it's ready to use again. Now this bag of clay, it is really kind of firming up. It's kind of already too hard to work with, but if I were to wedge it, the act of wedging kind of dries clay out a little bit more. So this needs some work done to it before I can actually wedge it. So what you can do with clay like this that's too firm is you can make it into like thick hamburger kind of patties. And then you can put some holes in it like this. And then once you have those holes in there, you can actually take them and you can fill them full of water. You just want to fill the holes full of water. Now, the thing that's really weird about clay is that once it already has water in it, like there's water in this clay, that's why it's still so malleable. It doesn't take in water so easily once it has water all the way in it. I made some cracks in this so the water's going all the way through. What you want to do with these immediately when you put water on them is you want to put them right in a bag, and you can stack them right up. So, but again, going back to this concept about when clay already has some water in it, right? Like this is not bone dry. This is kind of not leather hard. It's like a dry plastic clay, right? I can still bend it. I can still form it, but it's kind of on the dry side. You can see that the water is just literally hanging out in those little holes that I made. It's going to take at least 24 to 48 hours for that water to soak in there, right? Because there's already some water content within the clay itself. It's not like, oh, I'll just soak that water up right away. Whereas this stuff, here's my other bag of clay. This is clay that got way past, right? This is bone dry clay, isn't it? Yeah, bone dry, right? I can't make anything out of this. And the only thing I could make out of this really simply is slip. Now, I can actually take slip though, and I can then make slip back into plastic, usable, wet clay. If I'm careful about how much water I put on here, this will soak up that water really fast. And even in like 2-3 hours from now, I can mix this up a little better, make it into some slip, and then I can pour it onto a piece of fabric or into an old sock and kind of squeeze the water out. And you would be surprised how quickly slip can be made into malleable clay. There'll also be a page talking about reclaiming from bone dry that shows you how to do this process. The water is soaking in very fast. I can actually hear it going into those like, you know, porous holes in the bone dry clay. Whereas here, right, all these finger holes, they're still full of water. That's going to take, whereas this water is really about down to half of what I poured in there almost. It's soaking in really, really quick. So the idea here is more of a reconstitute idea, right? With this one, this is where the clay is still malleable, but it needs a little bit more water. I can't just force the water in there. I have to give the water time to soak in there. It's reluctant to go in because there's already some water in there. So that's kind of the reconstitute. This whole process you could think of is ways to recycle clay once it's gotten away from this really nice clay that you first got. But this would be reconstituting. Really, this process, once it's gone all the way to bone dry, right? Once it's gone all the way to bone dry and you're adding water to it, and effectively you're turning it into slip. There's another neat thing I did. You see, you can cut a hole in your slip container so you don't have to keep washing out your brush as you get using slip more and more. But yeah, so what's in here is going to turn into this, and then we're going to remove some of the water and make it malleable, usable, moldable clay again. All right. So a little intro for you to caring for your clay, how to reconstitute, or how to recycle clay in general, and recycle being kind of the thing that each of these processes is doing. Reclaim being the one where it goes all the way dry, and reconstitute being the one where you're adding some water to it. You could even say that the clay in this bag that's been broken into a bunch of little pieces and I put back together and it's still wet enough to wedge back up, that's also kind of reconstituting. All right.